Dan kita bersama dengan tokoh korporat, pengurusi Bank Muamalat dan juga pengurusi Asean Business Advisory Council Malaysia, Tan Sri Dr. Munir Majid. Izinkan saya meneruskan dalam bahasa Inggeris. Tan Sri, let's look at the ASEAN BAC response to the ASEAN leaders' declaration on COVID-19 pandemic. I'm just going to simplify the 3 points we want to discuss based on the ASEAN BAC response. First, the well-calibrated reopening of the economic activity. Second, the enhancement of the preparedness of ASEAN to absorb redirection of supply chains from China to Southeast Asia, and the third is the ratification of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership (RCEP). That you mentioned in the ASEAN BAC response to the ASEAN leaders' declaration on COVID-19 pandemic. Could you elaborate on these 3 points? Why is it so important for ASEAN to move forward with these 3 points?
Yeah, at the heart of those 3 points, Rizal, good morning. At the heart of those 3 points is a fundamental requirement that ASEAN government and its officials work closely with the private sector in trying to navigate this current crisis and also trying to foresee and plan for the medium-term outlook. So those 3 points are related on this fundamental necessity for the working together of the private sector and ASEAN governments. We meet, we talk, we declare, we make statements, but nothing happens. That's what people say about ASEAN. Now, in this urgent and critical situation, we must make things happen. If they don't, people will lose faith in ASEAN, whereas ASEAN is well placed to take advantage of that new world that will come, because that new world will be a regional world. ASEAN has got those plans for the ASEAN Economic Community. It has further got those plans for the RCEP, which is ASEAN plus 5 other countries, i.e. China, Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. And this will be a huge market that can make up, not totally, but make up for a world which is going to be rather fragmented and regionalized. So I want to come back to the fact that the heart of the matter is real cooperation between government and private sector with real projects, with real plans. Yesterday, the CIMB ASEAN Research Institute had an online seminar in which we discussed in greater detail what's happening in different ASEAN countries. We had about 200 plus participants, not across the region, and also participants from the UK, Canada, even Russia, of course, Australia, New Zealand. And I have made 6 proposals, specific. So we're talking about specific things at this during this discussion. The 6th, of course, is work with governments, where you started. Work with governments. Governments must work with us. Now that's the 6th. But the first specific proposal, what do we do now, especially when supply chains have been disrupted and therefore production has been dislocated and production is not taking place where they can take place, where lockdown doesn't lock them in. So it's a very difficult situation. What do we do? So I propose that we have a supply chain mapping on one platform. So data is important. If you have that platform with a supply chain mapping, a manufacturer who is in need of a supplier because his regular supplier has fallen off the wayside because of this crisis, he can access an alternative supplier if he thinks the cost makes sense for his manufacturing. That's specific. And these are the things which forwarders, freight forwarders, logistics companies, and industry associations to try and work on, set up this platform. The second thing is that there should be supply chain connectivity agreements among governments, in ASEAN particularly, to say that we will not interrupt supply of essential goods, medical goods, fresh food, and so on and so forth. If you remember, when Malaysia introduced the NTO, Singapore was worried that cargo and food will not go to Singapore, and our Prime Minister gave them the assurance that it will not be disrupted. And indeed, subsequently, Singapore also issued a ministerial statement along with New Zealand, Australia, Brunei, Myanmar, and 1 or 2 other countries, saying that they will continue to supply. So supply chain connectivity agreement would be necessary.
Okay.
Now, the third, sorry.
Go ahead, Tan Sri. The third one?
Yeah, the third thing is, Rizal, we know about these problems, the cash flow issues facing all MSMEs, not just in Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, huge problems facing them because they cannot survive. They've got no money to pay their workers, and they might have to lay them off. Of course, there have been various reliefs and so on, and also there have been various loan moratoriums. There's also been various easy loans. In Malaysia, for example, the Minister of Finance announced, just I think yesterday, that of the 6.3 billion that's available to MSMEs, 2.7 billion have been taken up. Yet they complain there's not enough. They complain that the administrative system chokes them. In other words, they need some mapping, a master list of grants and assistance available for MSMEs, a kind of a user guide to navigate for country-specific paperwork that they have to do to get these loans. So that's the third specific proposal that we make. It's not just general statements. And then the fourth, demand shocks, okay? Demand shocks. All of a sudden, tak ada demand, no more demand. Macam mana nak jual? Macam mana nak beli? Lepas tu, so what it needs is, of course, we need more e-commerce. Okay, we need online marketplace. We've been talking about it, but now we need it to supply. And so I think what Lazada did, to help MSMEs, put them on their online platform for no cost, not charge them commissions to let them reach the market. Of course, you still need logistics for delivery, but you can help if everyone goes online and e-commerce as much as possible. Of course, there's also a question of literacy. Computer literacy among the MSMEs, that's got to be upgraded. And there's no alternative to it. And even after this crisis, that will be the way forward. Now, fifth is everyone's talking about app-based contact tracing. Okay? Now, Rizal, I do think we need it, but I also worry about app-based contact tracing because those who are inclined to be dictators or who want to misuse this can use app-based contact tracing to inhibit your freedoms and have Big Brother looking at you all the time. Therefore, there should be a clear understanding what we want contact tracing to do, and any any move outside of what it's supposed to do cannot be tolerated, and therefore the civil society must come out and say we do not want our freedoms to be compromised just because you have this problem. You have this problem, you use contact tracing for a specific purpose. Okay. You don't use it to inhibit freedoms. And then, of course, some people say, the Western countries have failed, compared to Asian countries because they love freedom so much. This is not true. You look at Sweden, okay? Sweden is one country which has got no lockdown, as you know. And why has it succeeded so far with relatively fewer deaths? Because, one, Sweden has got a very good health system, first class. Now, our politicians and governments will say, we must improve the health system in our different countries. That's why Sweden is able to do. Secondly, Sweden already work from home. Most of their people work from home. And they're already using online work. They're already doing it, even before this crisis. And thirdly, of course, this is not true of other countries. Sweden is single-member household. Maybe a divorce or other people live on their own more than other countries. Okay. But Sweden is still free. It's still a free country, but there are certain social disciplines that are in place already, practices and disciplines already in place in Sweden, which makes it able for them to not have lockdowns. So don't say, because these fellows are free, that's why they have this problem. It's a question of how society behaves and how government behaves.
Okay, and Tan Sri, your last point, the sixth point, you missed the sixth point.
Which point?
Yeah, the last point. There's the sixth point in your suggestion, in your specific suggestion.
The sixth point is, of course, we must work with government officials. So, as I said, I started with the sixth. You asked about the sixth point. And what government is doing is they're not in full consultation with the private sector. They consult the private sector in emergencies when they need help. And I know our government here has been meeting the SME Association the moment that there was this outcry about after the second stimulus announcement was made, how come there was not enough for the SMEs, if you recall? And then the Prime Minister made a third statement. The second under this present government, the third for the government as a whole. Because the first stimulus was announced by the previous government. So, you must be talking to them all the time. I also admit the private sector also has not been as active, as proactive. And the associations must now be on the ball, and make proposals and look into the kind of proposals that I have just suggested, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Work with government, take it to government, say, what do we do? At ASEAN level, look, government, you must establish industry official committee for the immediate term and for the medium term.
And Tan Sri, we are about 35, 36 days in after since the MCO first started. How is the business sector? How is the private sector responding to this 35, 36 days of MCO? Briefly, we have about 2 minutes before we end this interview.
Okay, the point is, obviously, business sector feels MCO is a choice between life and livelihoods. Okay, and it's not an easy choice to make. We have to accept that the Ministry of Health and the DG of Health in particular, who's done a stellar job, will have the final say about how much work you can be allowed to do. What corridors to business activities can be allowed, what disciplines you must follow when you go back to work, and so on and so forth. They must accept it. If they fail, they'll be knocked out. You cannot work again. So there will be discipline. They must be disciplined, and there must be enforcement to ensure that they work. Now, if you started to work again in this environment, you have full-scale work, you use full capacity, knowing that market demand is going to be limited, or do you operate at 50%? So it depends on various industries, whether you operate full throttle, near full throttle, 50%, 25%, or don't want to open at all because there's no business. For example, retail outlets, hairdressers, people are still scared, even if you, relax the lockdown.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri Munir Majid. Itu tadi Tan Sri Munir Majid, tokoh korporat pengurusi Bank Muamalat dan juga pengurusi Asean Business Advisory Council Malaysia membincangkan berkenaan dengan 6 cadangan susulan daripada perjumpaan dengan ataupun ASEAN Roundtable Series, ASEAN Response to COVID-19 Medium Term Outlook and Urgent Stimulus Measures for the Business Sector yang diadakan pada hari semalam oleh CIMB ASEAN Research Institute CARI dan juga ASEAN Business Club ABC. Kita akan bincangkan lebih banyak lagi berkenaan dengan respons sektor swasta dan juga bagaimanakah kita akan buka ekonomi ini jika akan dibuka dalam masa terdekat ataupun masa beberapa minggu ataupun bila-bila dalam masa akan datang. Teruskan bersama kami di Niaga Awani dalam perbincangan kami dalam hari-hari akan datang. Saya Rizal Zulkafli, salam hormat.